Hello, this is Kirby Repco. Today we're going to get started with some Cosmos DB REST API work. We're just going to get a little bit more familiar with how those APIs work, and we'll use Postman to help us with that. So let's get to work. Okay, so step one is to go grab Postman and download that. I'll put these URLs in the video notes. Pick the operating system that you're running from and download that. That is step one. Next, we're going to go grab a collection. That is something that we can import to Postman to help us with these REST API calls. So out on GitHub, this is a collection that helps with Cosmos DB, formerly known as Document DB. And then all you're going to do is click this here and download a zip file. Now, before we do that, let's see who created this. Doesn't tell us right on the surface here. We'll click one contributor. Still don't know who it is other than this code name, Microsoft CSA. That's a cloud solutions architect. I want to give a little shout out to Stephen Lindsay for creating this for us. There is a picture of Stephen with his HoloLens on there. So download that. And then the next step is to actually run Postman. So the first thing we do here, I've already imported it, but the way you would import a new collection is simply to click the import button and then open the file that you had downloaded, that zip file that you had downloaded and expanded in a previous step. So what happens next? So we will then have a collection. I've made a copy of that, hence the name here. The very first thing you want to do is to change these environment variables. So I have an environment called Document DB Options, and if you click this little eyeball here, you'll be able to jump in there and see a couple variables I've set. And I'll delete this later, so there's no security risk here to my keys being exposed. But there's two things you need. You're going to need your master key to your document, and then the actual DB host name. So how do we find those? So go back out to your Azure portal, and in a previous video, I showed you how to set up a Cosmos DB account. So here we are in my Cosmos DB account. If you click keys down here, then the two things we need is our URI. That goes in the Document DB host name. And then of course we need our key here. So you just click this little button here, and then that's going to allow us to paste it in here. Okay, so if your collection is not expanded, go ahead and expand that. And let's click on our first example of a REST API call. So it's a list database. It's just going to go out to my Cosmos DB setup and list all the databases that are within that. But let's look at the URL here. You can see the Document DB host is soft coded. If we hover over it, you can see it's pulling out the value. Once again, thanks to Stephen Lindsay's coding, that was all taken care of for us up here in the environment setup. So you don't have to change that. That's soft coded for you. Also, if you look at the headers here, there's a couple static headers set up, but then you also these things in the curly braces, auth token and RFC 1123 time. That is all taken care of in this pre-request script that's already written for you. This is JavaScript. You can see they're setting the date environment variable there, and then scroll down to the bottom and you'll see the auth token environment variable being set there. So you can look at this JavaScript here, see how that's all done. So we are now ready to run that. So let's just click send. It goes out and replies that I have one database called to-do list. So let's jump over to my Cosmos DB, and if you'll remember from a previous video, Data Explorer. So we can easily look out and see what databases we have. So I'm gonna refresh here, not pulling any punches. I have one database called to-do list with a collection called items. So now what we're gonna do is create a database through this Postman API development environment called TempDB. Once again, here's a post request. We've soft coded the Document DB host here with what's in our environment variable. If we click send, it then comes back and says it created a TempDB1. And let's go ahead and get collections from that same thing. I'm saying go ahead, give me all the collections from TempDB. Now we just created it, so there should be nothing in there. Now let's run a post API here to create a collection. So the header is the same. Pre-request script is pretty much the same, but the body has the ID of the collection we want created. So we'll go ahead and send that, and it'll come back with verification that that was created. So let's just jump over to the Data Explorer again, refresh this, and you'll see what we've just done. Created a database called TempDB, and then a collection called Temp Collection, and there are no documents in it. All right, next step is to create a document. We'll click on that example here. There's a post, and let's jump in and look at the body, because this is going to give us some information. So I modified this from the one that was on GitHub, and you can do the same. But this is the body. This is the information that's going to be in the document itself. So we'll send that, and then it gives us a good response here that that's been created. And once again, we'll look at Data Explorer, refresh this, and now we have a document, if we refresh this, called Repco Family, and then there's the contents of our document. So I just wanted to show this interaction of how you can test using the REST API. You don't have to use the REST API. It's not the only way to get to Cosmos DB. There's a lot of SDKs out there to do that. But I wanted to show you how easy that was using Postman to kind of get your feet wet doing that. I wanted to show one other thing. If you get into a document that has, or a collection that has a partition key, that's a little tricky. And so in the header for a partition key, you'll need this key here, and then within the square brackets and the double quotes is the value of that partition key. So that's something I kind of stubbed my toe on and wanted to show you. Another thing with all of these, and this is something that was pointed out in a more detailed video that I'll put a link to from Stephen Lindsay and Azure Friday, is if you click code here, you can pick whatever code language you're interested in, and then actually see a translation of that. So Postman, very powerful, of course, and a great way to get started working with APIs and Cosmos DB. Thank you for watching.